thanks for participating in this. Really helpful to hear your thoughts about what you experienced the other day at Stretch. If you could just introduce yourself to me, just give me your name.
Arturo, 29, have been living in Berlin for the past 7 years.
Great, thanks. So I'm conducting an interview. It's, 25th of July?
Yes.
And I'm going to ask a series of questions. So I'll begin. What point in the workshop evoked the most positive emotion in you, and can you label that emotion?
Well, there have been different stages of the workshops with mixed emotions, and I think the one that was most exclusively positive was the ending, where we were reunited in one community in one big hug before falling asleep together. And it felt very protective, a very safe space, and like I had a connection to a community, even the ones I was not touching, and it was a very soothing feeling.
Thank you. What point in the workshop evoked the most negative emotion, and can you label that emotion?
I think when the other bonobos in the community were starving because of us, because we had taken the food, all of the food, and they got angry and aggressive. And I think the reason for that was not only the expression of the anger, but also the fact that we had caused it. So we were participating in that pain, and that was I think sense of guilt is something I'm very used to, and something I struggle a lot with. So that kind of triggered that.
What point in the workshop brought you out of your comfort zone, and what did you feel?
I think the first time I got in touch with the genitals of other participants, and it was still in the beginning of the workshop, I still had probably in my head the idea I should perform in some way, or I should I was thinking if something was appropriate or was not appropriate, whereas with time, with the evolution of the workshop, these thoughts kind of became smaller and smaller, and it all became more natural.
What point in the workshop was most beneficial to you?
Well, the moment when the community united to fight the panther that attacked one of our own. It was the moment that struck me the most. And as I said at the beginning, it was not only positive, because it was one of those moments where there were mixed feelings, negative and positive. The pain, the initial pain, but then most of all the sense of empowerment we got from defending and rescuing and revenging one of our own, which I think is very important for gay men, since we are always victims most of the time of violence, and very seldom we have the occasion to elaborate that violence. Most of the time it has happened to me so many times that in my mind I would think only minutes later or days later how to respond to violence, how to respond to a violent act, and this anger builds up and you never have an occasion to work on it, to give it like space in a positive, productive way, and it only eats you from the inside. And it's, I think, an anger which I always have present somewhere. And it happens so many times that when I go out in the streets, for example, and I know, I'm aware that I look more queer or more gay than usual, or than other days, or than other people, in my mind I already project the moment where somebody might attack me verbally, and I already project the moment where that might happen and how I would respond to that, if I would have a good answer to it, and if I could manage to defend myself if that should happen. So to have that space was to actually do it was very powerful. And I also noticed that at the beginning everybody was kind of confused or resistant to attacking the jaguar, because I think we are so programmed to not respond to that, to let it flow upon us, and but then everybody did it, and it was so a sense of relief, like a communal relief. It was really powerful.
It was terrifying on my part because I didn't expect that at all.
Yeah.
What was your experience of physical touch?
I thought I would be more uncomfortable with it. I had just come out of a workshop where I had felt a very uncomfortable touch experience, and so I was kind of defensive. I always thought that I was very free with my body, with what I do with it, and then just before that I realized, okay, there are actually some gray areas that are not so safe for me. So the initial moment was a bit defensive, but then it evolved in a very, I think, such a safe environment, and that it all became very natural. And I think also the fact that we kind of have a play dynamic, it kind of makes you even safer, because you are allowed to think that you are not doing it personally, but that you are, a part of you is doing it. So it's kind of there is this almost like an actor, and an actor still feels the pain but knows that it's not his pain. So I think there is this kind of dynamic.
Thank you. What did you learn about yourself?
My need for a community. I felt in that moment how strong it was, how I've been looking for it for the past year, and definitely for longer than that, and finding it and meeting it there was one of the breaking point, I think, of my stretch experience.
What did you learn about bonobos?
The great creatures. Yes, I find it fascinating how this social behavior just evolved by itself without any input from the outside. I find it fascinating, and how they use touch and sexual behavior to resolve in a positive way all these conflicts. I found it, I think one of the most beautiful examples you made was when communities of bonobo meet, like two foreign ones meet in the forest or jungle, and males start being aggressive and female jump onto each other and start having intercourse with each other and arouse the male in the processes, and this completely dissolves the aggressive behavior.
It's very ingenious, isn't it?
Yes.
And just because bonobos are separate by the Congo River from the chimps and the gorillas, they've been able to live and develop like this, whereas the chimps and gorillas have had to the testosterone has built up to, because they've got conflict consistently with one another, so that's how they've become aggressive, you see.
Okay.
Whereas the bonobos haven't got any, they've never seen a gorilla or a chimp. What was the worst part of the workshop for you?
Couldn't pinpoint it. I did not really have strongly negative feelings, but I would say that it's been it was sad to me to see the difficulties in the other participants, and whether I was recognizing some difficulties in them as human participants or some difficulties in them as bonobo elements of the community. And I guess it's something I have to work on, projecting less on the problems of the others and focusing more on mine. But yeah, I think that was the hard part for me.
What was the best part of the workshop? And you may have similar answers to best positive emotion, but it's a slightly different question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say the whole dynamic of chasing away the panther, because I am familiar with the feeling, more familiar with the soothing feeling I had in the end, in the dynamic of falling asleep together and hugging and cuddling, and it was a very positive feeling, but something I had already in some way or to some degree experienced, whereas this empowering feeling was something so new and I really needed, and I think it was the best thing I felt during the whole experience.
And two questions left. How far will the workshop experience help you in interacting with others?
I think, or at least now it's still very fresh, so, but I think I have more openness for the desire of contact and of building up contact and significant relationships with other people. I think I've been very defensive because oftentimes when another person was coming near me in an emotional way or also physical way, I would think, okay, what does he want from me? And that would be my first reaction, and I would already project his desire or her desire, but mostly I do that with men, and think, he probably wants something I don't want, so I would rather just stop this interaction from the beginning, and I think the whole experience eliminated a few layers of these patterns, and allows me now to just experience this interaction how they are, and then see where they go.
And the last question is, how could we improve the workshop? So what would you do? Would you bring anything in that you think might improve it?
The only thing I might have found, I think it might need more time to include everything we talked about before. Because, for example, the part of the signs was of starting the signs of the bonobos was interesting and also quite playful, and so I guess it's a good way to break the ice. But on the other way, I realized during the workshop nobody was really using them, so I guess it might be a way to include them more in the dynamics.
Yeah, that's good feedback. Because it's quite sophisticated to learn that, isn't it? So to make the exercise raises awareness about bonobos doing that, but it doesn't really implement it into the workshop. Yeah, I'll have to give some thought as to how to do that. Maybe I don't introduce, maybe have less than 10. Maybe just there's a few just for people to play with. Thanks so much. That's been really, really insightful, and really appreciate your feedback, and it's given me it always, when you said what you said the other day actually about the coping with violence and aggression and what have you, sometimes I question why I'm doing this stuff, but when I hear stuff like that, it's kind of like it confirms why I should be doing it. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you to you for giving me the opportunity.